The Bundoran Weekly is brought to you by AIB, supporting local businesses in Bundoran. For more, see aib.ie.
Hi everyone, it's Shane Smyth, Bundoran Tourism Officer. It is Friday the 7th of October 2022 and I'm here with you for the Bundoran Weekly Podcast, episode 203. It is a podcast that talks about everything Bundoran. A little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by John McDonagh, who is bringing his Off the Meter show to the Abbey Centre in Ballyshannon tomorrow night. It's at 8 o'clock and John has a really interesting story to tell. He's a New York City taxi driver and a very unique show he is bringing to Ballyshannon this weekend, so more from him a little bit later on. Of course, we'll be joining Teresa O'Neill in our community corner from Bundoran Community Centre as well. So lots happening on the podcast over the next little while. Lots happening indeed in town as well. Let us start off as always with the entertainment guide, and in the Allingham tonight it's Social Dancing with Carmel and Glenside Country. Kieran Mackery is then a little bit later on. Tom Moran in the Coolmore Bar tomorrow night, and Robert Mazzell in the ballroom, and that is doors open there at 9:15, on stage 10:30 until 12:30 and €15 admission. Mark Black, you'll find him in Key West on Sunday afternoon, and Elaine Boyle then on Sunday evening from 7:30 until 9:30. And the Chase and Bull, we want to say a big happy birthday today to James, who owns the Chase and Bull. We'll not divulge what age it is, but it's big enough to be having a party anyway, so happy birthday James, and thanks for all your support of Discover Bundoran. Fabulous Franks are there tomorrow night. Thursdays continue at the Bank Bar. Trad session continues at George's Bar each and every Sunday from 4 until 6, and there's music across the weekend as well. Music across the weekend tomorrow night and on Sunday afternoon in the Bird's Nest. Tonight at the Phoenix you'll find Gav Kelly. Tomorrow night music with the Brambles, and Sunday the legendary Johnny Gallagher. Alan Chapman tomorrow night at the Railway Bar. Hybe tonight at 51 Main Street, and Jerry McGinley there tomorrow night, and as usual Paris is open each and every Saturday night. If you want to go to the cinema, then you can check out the new releases this week, and plenty of them. The Woman King Amsterdam, The Lost King, no relation to The Woman King, and Lyle Lyle Crocodile. Also, they're getting into spooky season as well. The Shining and Nightmare Before Christmas are screening this weekend and into next week as well. And Missed It Monday is the Irish movie Roisha and Frank, and you can find the full schedule on our website at discoverbundoran.com, or indeed on eclipsecinemas.com as well. And as part of Wayne Fest, which is happening across the county, the Railway Children Return, that is screening tomorrow and on Sunday afternoon at 12 o'clock, and admission there is just $3.50. For something a little bit different, Donegal Voices are playing tonight, singing tonight should I say, indeed in St Patrick's Church in Ballyshannon as part of the Donegal Bay and Blue Stacks Festival. More details on that website there for that. And as we mentioned earlier on, John McDonagh and his Off the Meter show is tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and tickets are still available at abbeycentre.ie. John will be joining us very shortly to talk to us about his show and how all that has come about. And we also want to remind you as well that Ballytour brings the history of Ireland's oldest town, Ballyshannon, back to life through an interactive and engaging walking tour telling various stories of Ballyshanon's past. It's happening this Sunday afternoon, and it'll see some of the town's ghostly tales reenacted in a 1-hour event from 3 o'clock. Meeting is at St Anne's Hall, and that sounds like a real fun tour on Sunday afternoon, and again part of the Donegal Bay and Blue Stacks Festival as well. Also part of the Donegal Bay and Blue Stacks Festival is our own Festival of Europe, and that is happening next weekend. My goodness, it has drawn up so quickly. So we are having a warm-up sessions on Thursday evening, and then on Friday we will kick off with our Sounds of Europe concert. Saturday then you've got the Folk Music from the Edge of Europe concert, and both of those are in the Bundoran Community Centre, and both of those are ticketed, but the rest is free. There's the Acoustic Euro Cafe Trail, which is happening on Saturday afternoon. Our various cafes taking part in that, with acoustic music from all of our musical guests from across our Dúzalage European partner towns, and that is all happening there, and then various live gigs as well right across the weekend. So a fun music filled weekend in Bundoran, and Philomena Bagley's 80th birthday weekend is on as well at the Great Northern, so plenty happening indeed in Bundoran next weekend, musically wise, and you can find more details on our festival at discoverbundoran.com/Festival of Europe, or indeed you can find it on Facebook and you'll find all of the information there. And thanks to everybody who is supporting that. Lots of sponsors and lots of support for our festival, so we really appreciate that. That's next weekend here in Bundoran. Also this Sunday, the Ballyshannon Garda Station is celebrating 100 years of serving and protecting the people of Ballyshannon and surrounding areas, and they're holding an open day this Sunday afternoon from 1 until 4 with a sensory hour from 12 until 1 with all welcome. Some of the services that are going to be there on the day include the fire service, the ambulance, the mounted unit with the horses, the armed support unit, and Bundoran RNLI as well. So plenty of opportunity to see how the Garda Síochána works, and we're delighted to be part of that this coming Sunday at Ballyshannon Garda Station from 12 until 4. And then further down the line, we spoke with Barry O'Neill from the Ballyshannon Rhythm and Blues Festival on last week's podcast, episode 202. It is happening across the October bank holiday weekend. And we are pleased to announce our Halloween event and pumpkin parade will happen on Monday 31st of October from the Atlantic Apart Hotel, and then the parade down Main Street to Bundoran Community Library, and that will happen Monday afternoon, Halloween Day, the 31st of October. We'll have more details on our website very soon about that. It is the Bundoran Weekly with thanks to AIB.ie supporting local businesses in Bundoran and Ballyshannon. Very shortly going to be chatting to John McDonagh, the New York City taxi driver, about his show called Off the Meter hitting the Abbey Centre in Ballyshannon tomorrow night. And we'll be joined by Teresa O'Neill in our Bundoran Community Centre Community Corner. Stay with us.
The Bundoran Weekly.
I'm Shane Smyth, Bundoran Tourism Officer. It is the Bundoran Weekly Podcast, episode 203. Now, many taxi drivers have many things to say and many things to get off their mind. One such taxi driver is John McDonagh. He's a taxi driver in New York City, and he has got a one-man show. It is called Off the Meter. It is at the Abbey Centre in Ballyshannon tomorrow night, Saturday the 8th of October. And I sat down with John during the week to talk to him all about it. You've been a cabbie in New York until COVID, and you also do a bit of radio as well. So, I guess where did the show come out? Did the show come before you became the cabbie, or how did that work?
No, the show came about, like, I've always been telling cabbie stories. I've been driving for 40 years, but in local bars like Rocky Sullivan's on Lexington Avenue, and then I only started doing it as a show is when I raised my family. I had no time before that. When you're driving a 12-hour shift, raising a family, there's no time for shtick or going out and do an off-Broadway show. So when they were gone, I entered the New York Fringe Festival. So when I got into that, I won awards and got great reviews. And then Malachi McCourt, my co-host on the radio show, called Kieran O'Reilly from the Irish Repertory Theatre, which is a famous off-Broadway theatre, and said, why don't you check this out? He liked it, so he took it and molded it into an off-Broadway play. He brought in Broadway sound, Broadway staging, all top Broadway people, and I was in over my head because I was used to having a bartender tell me what was going on. Now I had professionals. So I ran there for 3 months, sold out. And then from then on, I've been in Boston, all over New York, and now finally, I always wanted to bring it to Ireland. I just did 3 sold-out shows in Dublin, and now I'm doing one night, and one night only, at the Abbey Arts Centre in Ballyshannon on the 8th, October 8th.
Fantastic. So, and what's the show about? It's stories.
Well, it's stories, because I've lived a crazy life, but I would suggest if you live in New York and drive a cab, you're going to live a crazy life. Like, in it, it's not so much famous people I've picked up, but famous people that got in contact with me and wanted to do documentaries. So I do a whole story about Stephen Fry. He did a documentary that won a BAFTA award called Stephen Fry in America. So when he came to New York City, he wanted to meet me as a cab driver because he says he's a cab driver because he owns a black taxi in London, but he doesn't pick up anyone. He goes on the bus lane to get in and out to avoid traffic. So I said, I could show him the Empire State Building. Anybody could do that. And then it got me thinking, what is my New York? So in the play, I talk about where I was raised in Queens, But I grew up in an Italian neighborhood, all these mob clubs where you can gamble. So I called up and I said, listen, I can get Stephen Fry into this mob club to meet the boys. And I said, this is a place where they think Goodfellas is not a movie, it's a documentary. And what happened was the club had been shot up and there was bullet holes everywhere. So when they were starting to come over, they go, Stephen's going to love this place. He goes, but can you make a promise? And I said, well, what's that? When we're filming, there'll be no shootings here in the neighborhood? So I said, I can't promise you that, but if we go early in the morning, guys that shoot up club tend to do that at night. They sleep in during the day. So then we shot it. They met with him, and it was hilarious. Because you got Stephen Fry goes, could someone explain to me this hole in the wall here? And then they get up and they go, that's not a mouse hole, that's a bullet hole, blah, blah, and they tell the story. So I tell the whole thing of meeting with him, and then I got an email from BBC America. There was a show called Crash Course. Can I teach Richard Hammond from Top Gear how to drive a yellow cab? Now, here's a guy, he owns 15 cars, 15 motorcycles, and a helicopter, and I'm going to show him how to drive. So I talk about what it was like for 2 days driving around with Richard Hammond and teaching him how to drive. And then what makes this really relevant, I hung out with Salman Rushdie. And I tell a story about in the play before his stabbing a couple of weeks ago, like he had no bodyguards or nothing when I met him at this Penn Literary Festival. So it's stories like that. Now, if I was telling you verbally, I did all this, another exaggerating cabbie. I have the video.
Right.
So I go to multimedia and I go, boom, there's the video, there's this. And you are shocked to see some of the scenes that I've been involved with. It's just been absolute madness.
So over the 40 years, and there's lots of stories, I'd imagine. So is the show, is it scripted? Is it bullet pointed? Do you know what stories you're telling from start to finish, or are you just kind of thinking up stuff and like, oh, by the way, but this happened one time?
If I was at Rocky Sullivan's on Lexington Avenue, it'd be all over the place. Yeah. But because I went to the Irish Repertory Theatre, there was a script, because there's certain words where the video behind me has to hit on. So I have to do it. And because I'm not a professional actor, I have went off script. And I'll never forget Kieran O'Reilly. He was always pissed at me not sticking to the script, and he would come back to the dressing room and he goes, Joe, we're going to try something different tonight. Oh, Karen, what would that be? How about the script? So I do stick to it as much as I can, but like the Salman Rushdie, I have to, say he was just stabbed. And then even I was on the Daily Show with Trevor Noah, and I mentioned he's leaving this week, just to keep it a little bit irrelevant, that it's not stale. And I've added certain things in, like I was on the Daily Show after I did it at the Irish Repertory Theatre, and it's a hilarious thing of me going to the Lower East Side and having the cab blessed by a priest I know down in the Lower East Side. And they couldn't believe that I could get a priest to come out with holy water and throw it on the cab. So they filmed that, and I show that. So it's pretty relevant, but it covers the 40 years of how crazy New York was, the crack wars, the drug dealings. I had a gun put to my head. Ice pick put to the side of my throat, and I tell about all these crazy situations I gotten into in my life, or my 40 years driving.
So if people were listening to the media during the week, they will know that there was one certain person, Irish, of course, who came over, took a ride, but couldn't pay his bill.
Yeah, he was on a J1 visa, 4 a.m. We get to the destination. He has some cash. We didn't have the credit card. This was 9 years ago. And he says, listen, I own a bar in Dublin. I say, here we go. It's foreign. Everybody owns a bar in Dublin. He says, I'm not kidding. It's called Gaffney & Son. I'd never heard of it. So he wrote down on a piece of paper, give this cabbie 2 pints of Guinness when he comes into Gaffney & Son, signed Shane Gaffney. So I didn't act on it, because when I come to Ireland, I land in Dublin, I rent a car, and I come up to Donegal, where all my relations are from Anna and Tyrone. My father's from Ahayarn, and my mother's from Lettercran. So that's generally where I go up. So I never had time to run down and get 2 pints of Guinness. So now that I'm bringing the play over, I said, you know what? This is the time to do it. So I got the Irish Voice interested. There's mad cabbies going over for his 2 pints, and then the Irish media picked up the Mirror, the Independent, RTE, BBC, and it's been a whirlwind. But the most ironic part of it, the day I landed in Dublin Airport, my first email, it said, excuse me, we're from Guinness, and we would like you to come down to the Guinness Storehouse. We'll send a cab for you. we'll give you a free tour, free Guinness, and I got a swag bag with my name on the pint.
That's a smart PR person.
Oh, and it was, I'll tell you how smart they were, right? When I wrote it up on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, I said, I just came back from the Guinness warehouse where I was treated great, and I wish Guinness ran the world. The place would be a lot better. So the PR department gets back to me, John, if you'd mind, go back on your Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's the Guinness storehouse and not the warehouse. I said, oh, who gives? Okay. I said, okay. I went back and I changed everything.
That's the brand.
Yes, that was it. But I was treated great. I've been treated great. Like, I got into a cab in Dublin, and the cabbie goes to me, are you that New York cab driver? I said, how do you know that? He goes, we have a Dublin cabbie WhatsApp group, and we're putting up all the articles on that. So we've been following what's going on with what you're doing.
Brilliant.
So it's just...
So you do a bit of radio back in New York, and you haven't driven. You were telling me before we started recording, you haven't driven since COVID. Yeah. Are you missing driving the cab, or
no.
Are you too busy with other stuff
No,
now?
I'm too busy with this. And you know what? It's a lot safer talking about what it is like to drive, because I got into certain situations. I'll describe one. Back in the day when the Lower East Side was a drug den, I had a guy get in. I want to go to 8th Street and Avenue B. Now, when you get down to Avenue B, it looked like Dresden after the war, burnt out buildings. And the guy said to me, the passenger said, listen, you see that burnt out building? Can you stop there and wait for me? And you were going to wait because you weren't picking up any of the zombies down there. So 3 scenarios, and they all happened to me. He goes into the building. I'm there waiting, looking out the window. Next thing, he comes flying out. He's got a gun in one hand and a bag of dope. He jumps into the back of the cab. He's go, 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 go. So now I'm a wheelman in a drug deal. But that's not so bad, because guys that rob drug dealers tend to tip better.
Right.
And then I talk about the passenger goes up, he gets beaten, robbed of his money, and then I take him back and he has a doorman pay me. But in general, the drug deals went down and I got my fare out. But I said, that's all over with, because now there's an app to cop dope. You don't have to take me to the Lower East Side. You'll have a guy on a bicycle ride up to you and give you your drugs. And we don't carry money anymore, so we're not going to be robbed. It's all electronic. It's all credit card. And the other part of the business that changed, and that's why I couldn't do a play today. Nobody talks to you. They get in with their phone, and this is it. They're staring down. They barely look up, and they don't even exchange money with you, like getting change. They swipe the card, never mentioning a word. The only time they might talk to you, if you make a turn, and they go, driver, Google Maps said you should have went straight there. Why did you make that turn? I go, oh, here we go. I'm now battling with Google Maps.
I've only been doing this 40 years.
Yeah, but you know what? Google Maps does come in handy, because they see danger up ahead.
Yeah.
Like, say there's an accident or just traffic. Google Maps has been unbelievable, because I should have made the left, instead of going straight. But you have to adapt to the technology, and the yellow cab industry didn't, and that's why we're being killed by Uber, Lyft, just all these apps in New York. And they're all piecemealing everything. They go to the airport, they go here, they specialize, they lower rates here. They're killing us, and we're roaming the streets with nobody in the cab.
What about doing the show then, just to get back to that? Do you get nervous when you're doing the show, or have you done enough of them at this stage that...
I still get nervous. I was nervous about coming to Ireland, because I don't know if they would get a lot of the terminology. You know, the Lower East Side, drug dealing, shootings and stuff like that. But unbelievable reception in Dublin. So I hope on October 8th at the Abbey Centre, I'll get the same reaction. But you don't know. You come out there, what I think is funny, the crowd might not think is funny. I think, oh, this is hilarious. They look at me, this guy's a lunatic. So, I don't know. But I would say, based on the reaction in Dublin, it's going to go down well here.
Because I know you'll get the feedback from the audience and stuff, but it's a lonely place, standing on stage on your own for a couple of hours and talking.
Well, it's 70 minutes, no intermission, and it can be lonely if you're not getting a reaction. Yeah. If you're bombing and you're going, oh, if they didn't like that story, they're going to hate the next one, and you just go. But I think it's more relevant here, because in New York, I have to explain who Stephen Fry is. Nobody really knows him. And I have to explain Richard Hammond. We didn't have Top Gear. And Richard Hammond was actually more famous walking around in New York than Stephen Fry, because Top Gear had 300 million viewers, and all the tourists in Times Square knew who Richard Hammond was. But they didn't know, say, Stephen Fry. When I walked around with him, he was sort of anonymous because he was more the BBC and PBS, and he did Oscar Wilde in the movie and stuff like that. It would have been more of a very literary crowd that would know him. Whereas, Richard Hammond, for some reason, everybody knew him. There, I didn't realize how popular. Both these guys, I had to look up. Who are these guys? I had to Google them. I didn't know who they were.
What's the plans for the future? You're going back to do a little bit more radio, I guess, in New York? Or?
Yeah, well, I do radio every week, every Sunday with Malachy McCall. We cover New York politics and Irish politics. Like we've had on Noel Cunningham. And the reason we had him on, I heard him on RTE about his drug addiction and past. And Malachy was an alcoholic. And also, as Malachy says, I'm an atheist, thank God. And then the two of them talked about religion and addiction. And it was a fascinating show. So, it was things like that. I've picked up a few things that I want to do, people that I want on that I've met now when I go back. And, just have it's going to take me 2 or 3 shows to explain what happened to me in the past 2 weeks coming over. And
are you going to tour with the show a little bit more as well?
Well, because of what's going on in the media, I've gotten people have contacted me now from Galway, Wexford, and Escorthy and stuff like that. And now I can set up a bigger tour. Yeah. This was just a hit. Because why set up a big tour if people hate it? Yeah. Like, if it bombed, I would say...
It's like a fact-finding mission, this one.
Well, it is. It is. I went in, then I would have been going, whew, thank God it was one night in Ballyshannon. I can't bomb 2 or 3 nights, man. Eilish McIntyre would kill me.
Yeah. John, well, listen, best of luck with the show, and I've no doubt that the audience are going to love it, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on.
The Bundoran Weekly.
John, thank you. Best of luck with the show tomorrow night. Let's head now to our community corner. And in Bundoran Community Centre is Teresa.
Thanks, Shane. Are you remote working and living in Bundoran or the surrounding area and would like to take advantage of our voucher scheme? Please visit connectedhubs.ie or call into the centre to have a tour around our Co-work Plus. The Parent Toddler group is cancelled on Friday the 14th of October, but will be back on the 28th of October with a very special Halloween party in aid of Temple Street. This will be fancy dress. It will have a disco with sweets and treats in the Ruggie Suite from 2 to 4 p.m. Seafront Strollers is every Tuesday at 12 p.m. or Thursday at 4 p.m. It is a lovely walk and chat around the promenade and then back to the centre afterwards for tea and coffee. It is €2 per person. We have the Bundoran Museum, which is open every Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The museum is free, but donations are welcome.
Thanks, Teresa. We will talk to you again next week. That is going to do it for our Bundoran Weekly podcast. A reminder of our Festival of Europe coming up next weekend. discoverbundoran.com/Festival of Europe, where you'll find all of the details, and you can buy your tickets for our 2 concerts there as well. And don't forget, if you are posting on social media, do on Instagram, tag your photos on Instagram with the hashtag DiscoverBundoran, or indeed tag our account for your chance to be featured on our feed. And don't forget, if you are using Instagram stories as well, just search for Bundoran in Giphies, and we've got some cool little Giphies there for you to use on your stories to brighten them up. You can follow us wherever you're listening now, or indeed stream or download all episodes on demand at bundoranweekly.com, and contact us at podcast@bundoranweekly.com, and find us on Facebook and Twitter at Bundoran Weekly. That is going to do it. Have a great weekend, great week ahead. Talk to you next Friday. Good luck.
The Bundoran Weekly is a production of Discover Bundoran.
The Bundoran Weekly is brought to you by AIB, supporting local businesses in Bundoran. For more, see aib.ie.